Welcome to the poop talk. This is going to be really uncomfortable for a lot of people. However, I think it's a very important topic that we cover. Everybody poops, and we need to get over those feelings of discomfort in order to recognize how vital our digestive system is to our body. In Ayurveda, according to Ayurvedic medicine, when the digestion is off, the rest of the body is living in disorder and disease. One of our big indicators to how our digestive system is doing is our bowel movements. This week we covered Agni and the digestive fires, and we also covered the topic of Ama. Ama is usually going to present itself over long periods of time. One thing that's important to talk about with the poop talk is something we covered a little bit in week 3 when we talked about having a regular poop cycle. Ideally, we want our bowel movements to be daily, first thing in the morning. And if we're not having our daily bowel movements first thing in the morning, that's a big red flag that something is wrong with our digestive system. People who are dealing with excessive Vata dosha are typically struggling with things like constipation, lots and lots of flatulence. They're dealing with hyper or hypo-functioning bowel movements. They're dealing with irregular bowel movements. Typically, people who have excessive Vata dosha are dealing with feeling very bloated in the abdomen. Typically, what is happening is all of the bowels are getting backed up from not having that regularity. This means that we're dealing with an erratic Agni. One thing that's always recommended when we're dealing with things of that nature is to seek medical professional help and consider maybe scheduling a colonic or a colon cleanse. People who are dealing with heavy, sticky, dark, dense bowel movements are typically dealing with excessive Kapha dosha. People who are dealing with excessive burning sensations while having a bowel movement, or sometimes excessive amounts of diarrhea, those are dealing with excessive Pitta dosha. So when we are paying attention to our bowel movements, we can see the doshas and how they're being affected in our metabolism. So it's very important to pay attention to these things when we're having our daily schedule. Bowel movements should be one piece, unbroken, banana-shaped, brownish, yellowish, and not foul smelling. So if the bowel movement is foul smelling, if it's broken pieces, if it's dark, if it's sticky, those are indications that we're dealing with imbalanced Agni, or possibly a buildup of Ama or metabolic toxins in the colon. Now, a lot of people have a tendency to jump on certain fad programs like colon cleansing or at-home enemas. We have to be very, very careful when we follow these fads. Things like coffee enema are not recommended for people with Vata or Pitta dosha. For one, coffee is bitter and aggravates Vata, and coffee is also very acidic, which aggravates Pitta dosha. If you're going to perform something like an at-home enema to try to help with your bowel movements, try to consider which dosha you're dealing with before purchasing any of these enema programs. Typically in Ayurveda, when we do things like enemas, they're usually done by a doctor or at least supervised by a doctor. Seek medical professional counsel on which are best recommended for your dosha. If you're going to do a coffee enema at home, only do it if you're dealing with excessive Kapha dosha. If you're going to be doing something for Vata dosha, maybe consider an oil enema instead of a water-based enema. People with Pitta dosha typically don't have problems with constipation. In fact, they usually have excessive amounts of bowel movements. So enemas are not usually recommended for Pitta dosha while you're at home. Again, make sure you're consulting a professional when it comes to these things and try to avoid these fad programs. They might be more detrimental to your health than beneficial. For those of you who are parents, you might already recognize these bowel movement habits in your own children, especially if you're eating healthy at home as a family. Typically, children will have regular bowel movements on their own naturally. This is typically likely because children don't have as much AMA built up over time in their body. AMA takes a considerable amount of time to build up long term. AMA is not something that we get overnight. And children, because their metabolism is so new and so young and fresh, that they really don't have excessive amounts of AMA built up in the body. So they usually don't deal with too many issues with AMA. They do, however, have varying degrees of digestive fire. So for some children who are dealing with erratic bowel movements, that child might be more inclined to Vata dosha issues. Some children who are very regular know that that's a great indicator that you're doing a good job feeding them to their dosha. Ideally, we want our digestive system, our digestive fire, to work almost as well, if not better, than when we were children. The goal is to kind of reach that peak metabolically again. That's the best way to feel better. We want to make sure that our bowel movements are satisfying. If we are having unsatisfactory bowel movements, this is a red flag. Something's wrong with our digestive system. And it's within our power to control based off of making educated food decisions and food choices when we're eating at a restaurant or cooking for ourselves. Thank you for sitting through this uncomfortable but very necessary topic, and we'll see you in the next video.